Well, good evening, everyone. We've got a busy couple of days on the way. I just want to take a look at everything, break it down a little bit more for you here. Of course, hope you're all having a wonderful weekend so far. It's been a beautiful day out there here in the Southern Valley. Hopefully you take advantage of some of that, maybe get outside, go, I don't know, just enjoy this weather while we still have it, because next couple of days, unfortunately, not looking so great. We're going to take this full screen here, and looking at our sky cam right now, looking relatively calm out there. We've seen some clouds move in. Earlier today, we saw some gusty winds push through the region, and part of that is because of our cold front that pushed through. Now, we saw that sag south a little bit quicker than expected, so we didn't actually hit that record high we were talking about. Let's take a look at temperatures here right now. So, I'm just going to grab the pointer real quick and just point out, notice how to our southeast now we've got those 80s and 70s down here and that line from Alexandria to Brainerd, and then off to the north and west we've got all of this cooler air, 60s in the Devil's Lake Basin and northern Red River Valley. Now that's because our front pushed through the area, so we're seeing that cold air start to infiltrate our region. And this is a sign of what's to come in the next few days. We've really seen, for at least a little while, the last of our real heat and humidity. Take a look at satellite and radar right now. We have some rain starting to overspread the region. Now, especially as we take a look off to our northwest, we can see that consistent rainfall. We've seen that for portions of the Devil's Lake Basin this evening. This is where a lot of our heaviest rainfall is really going to set up. What we're seeing right now is helping to show us exactly where the features that we're looking for later on in terms of our low pressure placement, and therefore our heaviest rain swath is going to be. And right now it looks pretty much on track to what we were expecting. So we take a look, of course, here, taking a closer look. I'm just going to see if I can zoom in. There we go. Perfect. So we've actually seen in the past little bit these pocket of showers starting to pop up just north of Grand Forks. We've seen a little bit of lightning reported with these as well, so don't be surprised. Grafton, Halleck, Grand Forks area. If you hear a rumble of thunder within the next 15, 20 minutes or so, and those are all moving northeast with this system. So we'll see those showers and storms continuing to pop up. The reason being we're right behind that cold front, so we've got just enough instability. We've gotten some daytime heating. We've got some nice moisture transport into the region. Also some good low-level winds. Just a lot of factors in general that are helping some of these storms pop up. As we look later on to the evening, I'm going to talk about a little bit of a severe threat. Again, just look at this. This is all part of a larger system off to our south and west that's trying to push into our area. And that low pressure system is actually going to be passing right over the Red River Valley tonight. So something fun to keep in mind there. We'll be seeing that low pressure quite literally right over our heads by tomorrow morning. Let's take a look at some of the first alert criteria that we're talking about here for Sunday. So we have that first alert weather day for your Sunday. That doesn't mean that this evening isn't going to be active, though. We're also going to be tracking storms this evening. So we're going to see a temperature drop, heavy rain to the north and west, and gusty winds in excess of 40 miles per hour by the time we get into your Sunday afternoon. In terms of severe weather impacts, we do have a marginal risk for portions of the region. So that lighter, or that darker green shading there, I should say, that's where we have the risk to see one or two storms that could be severe. Severe in this case meaning some hail and some strong winds potentially associated with those. Oops, I do apologize. Let me go back there and just get through that graphic real quick. There we go. That's what we wanted to see. We're talking about hail up to an inch and winds up to 60 miles per hour being the threat with this. Again, I want to stress, this is going to be a very, very isolated threat. We'll just see one or two of these storms. And I mean, honestly, if we're lucky, maybe only just one. But, something we ought to keep an eye on this evening. It's a very, very, very low risk, though. Not everyone, and in fact, most people aren't going to be seeing severe weather this evening. But keep that phone in mind. Keep that VNL weather app nearby, and of course, just keep an eye on things if you do get one of those alerts. Make sure you have anything that you don't want to get dented by hail just brought inside. I'll take you through this evening. So again, the 8 o'clock hour, we've got those storms starting to fire. We see those popping up more so as we go into the 9 and 10 o'clock hour, and we can see that line sort of extending through the northern Red River Valley into far northwestern Minnesota. That's when we see these storms really start to ramp up in coverage after that point. So we go into the 10 o'clock, the 12 o'clock, midnight hour or so, and then into early Sunday morning. We can see this low pressure system getting closer to our area. As we look off to the west, we can see all of those storms starting to pop up. Now, by the time we get into your Sunday morning, the severe threat should be pretty well diminished. Then we're just talking about a heavy rain and gusty wind threat with these storms that are moving through. And this is all, as you look, let me just grab the pointer here. We can see this right here actually is our low pressure, right near our low pressure center in this area. So it's going to be getting, again, right over our region as we go into the morning. And this whole area of heavy rain, that's going to continue pushing northeast. So as we keep forwarding this graphic through, there we go. We can see by Sunday, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I mean, look at that. We're just talking about that widespread heavy rainfall to the north and west, so Devil's Lake Basin, the Canadian border, and the northern Red River Valley. A lot of those areas just seeing that consistent heavy rainfall overnight tonight. And then that sticks around through your midday Sunday. So it's going to be damp, it's going to be gloomy, it's going to be a bit of a rainy morning and midday period if you live in the Northern Valley. And then we clear out nicely tomorrow evening. Just a couple of stray showers sticking through the area. So let's talk about rainfall potential here. We're actually looking at some fairly impressive numbers for northern and western areas. Again, along this line here where we see the most consistent rainfall, we can see some areas here seeing potentially in excess of 1, 2, maybe even approaching that 3-inch rainfall mark, depending on exactly how many storms set up. And then Grand Forks here, we've actually been noticing this right on the line of that heavier rain, so kind of riding the edge of the more consistent rainfall overnight tonight. If the system happens to sag south a little bit, we could see closer to that 1-inch plus mark in Grand Forks, but right now looking like the heaviest of the rainfall and the highest potential flooding staying to the north and west of town. So some good news there. Then here in Fargo, I mean, we're talking about maybe 1/4 of an inch, but really not looking like much for the Southern Valley. This is primarily a threat for northern and western areas as we go through the overnight tonight. So again, we're talking about some pretty impressive rain totals for some folks. But that's not all. We're talking about wind gusts too. So tomorrow, 9 a.m. as you step out the door, those winds are going to be gusty. We're going to see some of these wind gusts potentially getting as high as the 40-plus mile per hour mark at times through the morning and midday hours tomorrow. I mean, that red indicating where we could see 40-plus. And then as I just roll this graphic through, stopping the clock at about 12 o'clock here tomorrow, 12:30-ish, your lunchtime hour, you're seeing winds potentially in excess of 40 miles an hour in Fargo, Grand Forks, Valley City. You know, this is something we've got to keep an eye on, of course. And if you have any garbage bins outside, any loose furniture, anything you don't want blown around, make sure to take it in, because regardless of exactly how high these winds get, tomorrow is going to be windy. That is one thing that we know absolutely for certain. And then we see those winds calming down as we get that upper level low to pull away from our area, and therefore we have less of a pressure gradient and lighter winds. Again, here's that timing for you just taking a closer look at that. Really the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. window, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., midday hours basically is what I'm trying to get across here. The midday hours are going to be the times when we see those peak wind gusts here in the Red River Valley. Western areas seeing those move through a little earlier. And then something interesting to note as well, of course, the foliage now really starting to pop. We can see those reds on there where we're getting close to peak color. This is something that's actually going to knock a lot of leaves off of the trees for many northern areas. So a lot of places might be past peak after this storm just because of leaf loss. Southern areas, of course, still not getting close to that peak yet, so you still got a couple of good weeks to get out and see them, but hard to believe it, but we're almost getting into October now, and those leaves are really starting to come down. Temperature trend. Let's talk about the long-term temperatures here. So, of course, our average high right now being right around 63 degrees, falling into the 50s by the time we get into next week, so cooling off pretty quickly now as our daytime gets shorter, less sunlight, of course. So if you look at our temperature trend here, you'll notice we dip to right around average for the next couple of days, and then we say above average a bit, but this is only about 5 to 10 degrees for the most part above average, so we're not going to be talking about 80s like we saw the past couple of days. We'll be talking about 70s as opposed to 60s where we'd see our average at. So tomorrow afternoon, those highs generally in the 50s, and then as we go into your Monday, another cool day, we'll be seeing those highs really only in the, looks like the graphics are not wanting to advance too quickly on me here. But if we can get those to work, there we go. It's like Monday afternoon, we'll see those highs in the 50s again. So a couple of cooler days on the way. And then something fun, too. Last night, I don't know if you've been watching the past few nights, but we have had some northern lights around the region. This is a really cool photo, and something I like about this I'll elaborate on in just a minute here. But this was taken on I-29 looking north just this morning, actually, just before sunrise. And you can see there, you'll notice some of the colors as you get higher up on those lights. You've got the greens at the base, now the pinks and the purples as you go higher up in the atmosphere. And that's actually something that we've documented before. That's a known fact that the lights actually do change color, in fact, as you go up in elevation. So that's why a lot of times when you see these overhead, you get a lot more of the greens. Those greens tend to happen at lower elevations. I'm just going to play through a graphic here real quick. That's going to explain it a little bit better. So obviously we've got the magnetic field. Earth has that magnetic field. You get the sun to put out that solar wind. Solar wind in this case just being a bunch of very, very highly charged electric particles that are emitted from the sun that wraps around and interacts with our atmosphere and the magnetic field. But then I want to get to this part in the graphic up here where you see, so you've got those electrons colliding with various molecules in the atmosphere. The really interesting part of this, a lot of this is actually very chemistry based. So atmospheric sciences, you have quite a bit of chemistry with some of this stuff, and you see these collisions. And so yes, in fact, when you see those different colors in the aurora, that's actually indicating what level of the atmosphere, what altitude they're at. So you get those red auroras, at some of the highest when you're above about 124 miles, when they're interacting with mostly those oxygen molecules. Then you go down a little bit further in the atmosphere, you get towards more where we have those nitrogen molecules being prevalent. And so that's when you see about 62 to 124 miles roughly in elevation in the atmosphere, and that's when you see those blue auroras. And then, like I said, those green auroras, one of the lower portions of the atmosphere, lower, of course, being in quotes here, that 64 to 124 mile range again, that's when they interact with the oxygen molecules lower in the atmosphere. But again, because of other processes that are already going on, you get that different color. Then the pink auroras happen below 62 miles. So just a little bit of a fun fact there. If you ever look up and notice the different colors, that is actually very indicative of what level or what altitude the particles are at and what altitude that aurora is happening at. So anyways, but again, just to reiterate, the main story for tonight being those potential severe storms, 1 or 2 isolated across the region. I'm just going to flip us back here real quick and just take one last look at that graphic again, just so you guys have that on the screen before I leave you here. But again, we have that severe potential for this evening. Tomorrow, of course, those gusty winds, so if you have stuff outdoors, just make sure to bring it inside if you don't want it to blow around. And then that rainfall potential. But again, there you go. So that marginal risk across the region this evening, just watching for that low risk for maybe some large hail up to an inch and high winds up to 60 miles per hour. Just keep an eye on the skies, folks. But regardless, enjoy the rest of your evening. And of course, I hope this has been somewhat useful, somewhat helpful, somewhat explanatory for you. And yeah, have a great rest of your evening, folks. And stay safe out there. Keep that VNL weather app handy, of course. We'll be right there at your fingertips if you ever need any news or information. Have a great night, everyone.